Hello, I'm Dr. Kathleen Hall, and this is The Way I See It.
Hello, and I'm Bailey, and this is The Way I See It.
Well, Bailey, my buddy,
What's up?
who I adore, we're going to talk about something fun today. And our topic today is watching the news making you sick. Okay, because...
Something I relate to.
Yeah, because we actually do studies and watch how people's blood pressure and heart rate and SED rates and all kinds of things happen when they watch the news. And it's really pretty much become an unhealthy or can be shown to be unhealthy.
I could see that.
So the problem that I have, being the social activist that I am, as you well know, my little, you hiccup me or do whatever you want and I'll show up with a sign or chain myself to the White House gate.
Yes.
As in olden times with my feminist girlfriends.
I think the first time I met you, you were holding a piece of cardboard.
Yes, and, in the old days, taping symbols to my thighs as I walked to get more attention. I made that up.
Did you really do that? I was going to say.
I made that up.
That didn't surprise me one bit,
but this sounds great for the next protest.
Yeah,
Can you
it really
imagine?
does.
And I've got more cellulite. I used to be a skinny little thing. God, this could
Did you
really...
say symbols to your thighs?
Thighs, yes, the inside of my thighs.
I would pay really good money to see that.
Oh, my God, this is our new business plan
Yeah.
for us. See? God almighty. So anyway, this is what we're going to talk about is, have you stopped watching the evening news? And again, not just the evening news, but any news. And what brings this up is I do mindfulness and mindful living. And what I find a lot is people feel like they, want to meditate and be vegetarian or do all this other stuff. And then they also have this tendency to have almost a superior or a enlightened or believe their enlightened aspect of life that they can float over the problems and the complications of life. Do you get where I'm coming from on that?
Yes. I think that in the journey through this podcast, we're going to have a lot of conflicting ideas, but that is somewhere where I think we align, for sure. I think that sometimes it's hard to watch, everybody says like the news is bad. All you watch is the bad things.
Right.
But I think that, and I've used this in my own experience, it's an excuse to just stay misinformed and misled.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you don't profit from misinformation or being misled. I think this is a great episode for people like me because I know that in my age bracket, I'm 31, that the folks in my 5 to 10 plus or minus on either side of me, we get our news from Instagram pretty much or Facebook, and that's just not the best.
And don't you think that depending on your political bent, that's who you're going to subscribe to.
Oh, of course.
And that's what you're going to want to hear. And this is, again, one of my concerns. And again, I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, nothing. I don't care what you are, is I think if you're not getting at least one news source from a centrist viewpoint.
Right.
And by that, by centrist, I'll go back to old-timey ABC, CBS, NBC. You can say what you want, but they've been around since the beginning of time. The advertisers make sure that they curate their news for middle America and centrist because their budgets demand it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't cut out half of a market.
And believe me, I've done enough major media in my life, which has been a huge part of my life, that I know how the bucks and the money flows for different kinds of programming. So
it's in their interest to be centric.
Yeah, very much so. And somebody's got to be centrist. Then you can fly off if you want, whether it's Fox or CNN or any other, whatever you want, whatever your bent is, MSNBC, I don't care. But mine is you really need to have at least one kind of a centrist perspective that makes you feel challenged or whatever it is. But here's why this has become a passion for me. I have three people that work with me, and they're all young women under the age of, most of them are under 30, one's 35-ish. And when I come in the morning, whether it's been a bombing, whether it's been something local that happened here in Atlanta, really serious things, or a dangerous thing that happened at a certain square, and I say, you guys make sure you avoid that place. They're like a deer in headlights. They look at me and go, Dr. Hall, what are you talking about? I said, so when was the last time you checked with the news? And they go, we don't really check with the news. We go on Facebook if something pops up, or we go to Instagram or whatever we do. And I went, you can't do this. You don't have a right. You're inheriting this world from us, from me. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, you need to know if the DeKalb County water millage has gone up, or if it's poison or got lead in it, or if somebody needs you to sign something to stop the rise of taxes, or whatever it is, that I don't think we have a right to withdraw from society and then just blame it on we don't like what we hear on the news.
Is it I think it's that. And then also, like, man, I hate to speak on behalf of like all millennials, but we really are kind of self-involved. And if it's something that won't directly affect, I think because we grew up in a time with information overload where we're really good at putting up blinders.
Wow, that's
and that's I mean, that's an excuse. It is an excuse.
But thank you. That's I hadn't thought about it. Yeah.
So it's like when you're constantly bombarded, whenever you grew up in a time where it's like, there's plenty of people that I socialize with on a regular basis that don't know what it was like before the internet. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing, to like grow up only knowing that, to constantly have that bombardment of information. So I think that you just kind of get numb to the fact. You just scroll right past it on your newsfeed. So,
and I think when we grew up, or when I did, it was the age of civil rights. Mm-hmm. Dr. King and everything was going on. Feminist rights. We were marching for, even women didn't have credit histories back then. And Title IX, women didn't have access to playing athletics. And so, and through the ages, we had to get up and create civil disobedience. And part of that was watching the news and finding out somebody marched here, somebody did this, the Supreme Court listened, we have to gather. Do you see? So it was our bellwether. It was our gathering point. It was and again, it was a huge information system. So I have been so socially, as you well know, involved my entire life with everything that even today, last night there was a dog that was found in a trash bin that had been burned and shot, I think, and everything. And then afterwards, so again, I'm watching, and Jim is like, how can you watch this? Well, then the next thing was there's a GoFundMe page, or the DeKalb County Humane Society. Could you give, if anybody can give $5? Well, see, so it caused me, to take action.
Exactly.
And then the next thing we found out this morning on the news is there's 100 people that want to adopt this poor dog. So my point.
Oh, the dog lived?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's going to live. And so, but my point about this is it also creates, you know what I mean, a certain kind
avenues for change.
Avenues for change and activism. And that's why I tell people, also in this, let's just be honest about the era we're in right now with impeachment and the volatility of the news, political bents. I don't care what you are. It is one roller coaster, isn't it? One roller coaster after another. So people are unplugging. And my thing about this is I tell my friends that I have two camps. One are addicted to the news, and they just watch it every second. And they're now on blood pressure medicine. They've been to their cardiologist. They've gained 20 pounds because they're eating chips and dip while they're watching all this, fanatic, crazy stuff. And then you have the other friends that have totally disconnected. And so for both of them, since I'm supposed to be the stress queen and all this other stuff, I said,
pull them back into the
trying to
middle.
pull them back in the middle. And I said, okay, you have no right as a human being to withdraw from society. You have no right. Okay, I haven't myself taken off for a year, lived in the woods, as you well know, did my Emerson Thoreau thing. My John Muir thing, as you well know. I've we'll talk about that in other times, but
I'm interested in hearing the Thoreau.
My point is when you come back in a normal life, you as a human being, it's my responsibility to take care of this planet and make sure that you're not being trafficked or that dogs aren't being shot. Do you see? It's part of the human condition. So what I suggest they do, especially with this political insanity over the last year or two, tape all the news. Tape it. Then what you can do is if there's parts of it, for an example, the hearings in Congress that have, take up 15 minutes of the news, you can breeze past those.
Right.
If it's something lead in the water that you've heard the same thing go on for weeks, pass that. But do you see? Don't
if you've already
if you've already
seen it, if you've already taken time to reach out to
and you know, Bailey, too. Some of
congressman or
these
something.
some of these topics are very volatile for someone like myself. Whether it's a grisly murder or something or shootings, I've been affected with such violence that I may need to go by those. Do you see?
Right.
And other people maybe. So my point is, use it at your discretion. But my God, please don't withdraw. Look at climate change. Look at guns. Look at all the issues. Don't get overwhelmed. This is my point.
Right.
There's never been. Have fun with it. We need to change our construct from victim to being in control. If you watch and live in this world as a victim, you're going to be dead. I mean, you're just not going to survive it. But if you can think of yourself as the powerful arbitrator of change, and also the other
and a pursuer of information,
yes,
too.
and the other cool thing, you know this, when I've gotten involved in all these things, I met new friends. My life changed. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But if you turn yourself off from the news, and also let me throw in something else, it can make you more compassionate. We're living in a world that, you know, are you north or south, east or west? Are you blue or are you red? Are you this or you that?
And we're 100%, all of us are so desensitized at this point.
Good word.
You know?
That's
and
a
I
great
feel
word.
like it invokes an empathy, it invokes a compassion that to where if you're only caught up in the struggles of your own life, then you're unaware of the tragedy, the joy. I mean, the news isn't completely bad.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think that we're only addressing that because that's the excuse that people give.
That's an excuse.
I don't want to just listen to bad news all the time. Well, like you said, tape it. If it's a grisly murder, skip it. You know, it's like you'll get something out of it. You get what you put in, you know? So it's like you're not going to get anything out of it.
And your attitude of how you perceive. But that's about a marriage, a relationship, your job. Everything is about attitude. But the other thing I think you and I have discussed before is I think it's almost hilarious to think that these times are so dramatically different. I mean, since Nostradamus, from Y2K to remember ever the world was going to end to the rapture. I mean, I literally have a friend whose father sends her a rapture box every 6 months. This is a true story. And so we went to her house and
like
so
iodine tablets and like pocket knives.
So
and stuff.
she has like a basement full of rapture boxes. I mean, you know, they like last in perpetuity.
Oh, of course.
So
yeah.
my joke about these rapture people, and if you're a rapture person, I just don't. One problem I'm having with it is if you survive the rapture and you're sitting there eating your rapture boxes, whatever. I didn't open one, so I can't talk to what's in it. And I didn't mean to mention her name, but every time she mentions the rap, we need to edit that out.
Yeah, that's fine. It'll be a beep.
That every time we talk about the rapture box, I get so hysterically laughing. I just can't control myself. So I haven't even found out exactly what's in one of these boxes.
I would love. It doesn't need to be a part of this program, but I would love to unbox.
You and I.
We should unwrap a rapture box together.
For a podcast.
That would be so awesome.
Okay, this is like
and then
so
we
cool.
could have
Okay,
a great
it's a
thing.
date. Here,
Yeah.
fine. Okay, it's a date.
Done.
We're doing it.
Look forward to that one.
Yeah, well, it'll be called
The Rapture episode.
A Rapture episode. So, but my thing is, so let's just do a little guided imagery here, and Bailey and I have the Rapture box. So all these starving people are out there.
Oh, and you're sitting on a treasure trove of like granola bars.
So here we go back to the base. I was a professor of world religions. So the base of all religions is loving your neighbor as yourself, kind of feeding them, clothing them, sheltering them, and stuff.
Of course.
So I'm in cognitive dissonance about the rapture boxes, Bailey.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand why some are. What is it? Some are chosen, or few are chosen, or I don't know how this works.
Well, I guess it's kind of strange because if you are a believer of a faith that accepts the rapture, you wouldn't be here for the rapture.
So why do you need a rapture box?
So you're essentially leaving the boxes for the non-believers behind.
That's kind. That is kind.
I mean, that is kind.
Oh, that's kind. fine. And maybe, her father's been sending them to her for years. Oh,
right.
So I
Yeah,
get it.
so-
He thinks my friend's a lost.
Either either that, or he's really just concerned with the non-believers that are going to be left behind.
But let's get back to the news.
Yeah,
So what I want to say is there is money to be made in news, obviously. But this has been going on what led us down the rabbit hole of the Rapture Box since the beginning of time. And by the way, the Rapture Box business is really thriving.
It's booming.
And it's booming, baby.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
Y2K, remember?
Every time North Korea does a missile test, they fly off the shelves.
So anyway, my mantra is don't be victimized by the news. You're in control. And this is an amazing, incredible life. And every obstacle is an opportunity.
Of course.
And the other thing is, with loneliness being at a pandemic level, which we'll talk about on another podcast, but it's a great way for community to see these call-outs of whatever social justice, animals, the climate, whatever fun stuff is going on. Somebody in your neighborhood needing something.
Right. And it's like you said, there's never been a time where it's like I feel like there was a time where you watch the news and you have to give up control. You just have to let this negativity or whatever wash over you. But I think I just wanted to bring it up again. The idea of taping it, not being forced to sit down at 6 p.m. to watch it, and then also having the control to manipulate it, as in the way of omitting things that you already know about, omitting things that might particularly trigger you. I don't think that being triggered, which is a great word that millennials use all the time. Are you familiar with that word, Kath?
I use it in stress all the time. Remember?
Okay.
I live in the trigger world.
Right. Yeah.
I deal with people.
Triggered.
Yes, in my books. Everything I do is about people because how do you reduce your stress?
Right, exactly.
Is awareness of what your triggers are.
And it's like, how are you going to know that until you...
And here's the key, though, Bailey, is not to run away from your triggers because it's a
Right.
world. It's your life.
Yeah.
And again, here's, I'm not going to go back to my prescriptive life that I do for a living, but there are some tips like, choose news sources with awareness. And the next is beware of your own emotion and your triggers, which is what you're talking
Right.
about. So if mine is violence and shooting and guns, because I grew up with horrible childhood of lots of violence and guns, I know that. So, but I am not going to turn off the school shootings. But when they get in the weeds about it or start talking to these people that are crying, I may have to buzz by those and do a touch and go like we talk about with airports. But we can't be victimized by the news.
I think self-awareness, and that's one thing that you speak on a lot, just knowing you personally, self-awareness is so key. And I think if you are running from something in your own mind that you are grappling with, and then something is presented to you on a television, you're going to just run from that as well. So I think that if you have that self-awareness that you always speak about, then you can accept what you're getting from this television.
And another thing is don't become distracted and defeated by a horrible event that happens. Here, another thing you can do, we just had a horrible shooting at a Jewish deli yesterday, which was beyond disturbing. Pray and send love. You can always do that to the family, to the police officers. God knows the life these first responders and police officers live through every day of your life.
Oh, my gosh.
You can contribute online in some way. Lots of times there was a police officer shot somewhere and didn't have any money, and most of these things have GoFundMe pages and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So you can, it's like saving the dog. That
I think that's just the greatest thing, the ability to do that.
And its name, I sit there and think about this dog now, and it wasn't just because I gave a little bit of money. It was because all of us want somebody who's been, and again, I know I come from that experience.
Right.
That this dog was thrown away, abused, and everything, and the hope and love. The love of the people that are surrounding this animal.
Right.
It's a metaphor for all of us about community and healing and hope. And of course, I wrote a book on hope.
Yeah.
in one of my hopeless states chained up at my farm. What do they say? Write about what's your biggest triggers, seriously.
Yeah.
And what your problems are.
Right.
But we've got to realize that it's a world that wants you almost, or it's very alluring to become the victim of stuff. So victim versus power. And Bailey, you just said this about awareness. The more aware you are, you'll be able to feel that little victim trap. It's like a little mousetrap or a little ding, ding, ding. And the more aware you are, you'll go, ooh, I don't like the way I feel because it feels really bad. And we always need to remember that every thought, every word, and every action has an effect on our mental and physical state, everybody's. So every thought, every word, every action, we can shift from victim to power, no matter what the situation is. And we have to participate in our world to be a solution, not to be a victim or another problem. And how much apathy and victimization and anger are we witnessing right now? Seriously, isn't it unreal?
I think the highest it's probably ever been.
It is.
Which is such an interesting thing that you have access. You have essentially unlimited access to all this information, and that on the other side of that coin, you have unending apathy. It's crazy. I don't know if they're related, but it's such an interesting thing. So true.
And like I tell people, do I really, when I turn on the news or what I do, it's remember, this is a recent phenomenon. We go back, God knows human history goes back forever. And when you and I turn on any news source, do I really need to know that somebody has some village in God knows where they have boils spreading around the population, or they have an infestation of crickets? I mean, it's like TMI.
Those crickets.
Uh-oh, here, another plague.
Yeah.
Bailey, another plague. It's a Y2K.
Oh, man. God.
It's time for us to get the cricket boxes going, just like the rapture boxes. And so... in circling around to close this particular topic, I just think it's so important. This is a really important topic. We're going into an election year. And so we really do need to
wake up.
It's kind of like the people, even hearing the candidates on these debates. Half of the people I know, I would never watch that. I'm not going to watch that stuff. They just argue and talk. And the other half are overreacting. Did you see so-and-so said so-and-so? And I laugh at all the different things I go. I don't laugh in their face. I'm laughing in my heart.
Yeah.
With my Jack Russells and my cat, my three-legged cat, Tess. But anyway, those are the only people that listen to me.
Tess is a great listener. I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, Tess loves you, though.
Yeah.
Tess really loves you.
We were having a little heart-to-heart earlier before I set up. It was amazing.
Is that, again, tape it, watch it, and then how are you going to know who's running if you don't watch this stuff? How can you be informed? How can you do anything if you're not informed? Do it. I mean, I just, again, here we go with the withdrawal part. You know, that we're getting fatigued, I think. We're getting politically fatigued. So we have to be careful, like we said, about the doses and the spots. And especially, I think this is a very valuable podcast, Bailey, because we're going into an election year. We're going into primaries. I mean, this whole thing is going to be so flooded with politics.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's they focus on climate change or trade or whatever the sidebars are to this election, we cannot withdraw. So I think here we are entering 2020. We need to center ourselves and go, okay, how am I, we're at the end of a year, beginning a new year.
Yeah.
I cannot withdraw. That's right. It's part of the human condition. I need to participate.
Exactly.
That's why I was given this life and given this gift. And how can I choose in my awareness? How will I choose to not be a victim of anything, but to be proactive and actually have some fun? We got to think of fun and play in this too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, part of my, going to all these things and chaining myself for the last 40 years of my life and doing all this stuff was, honey, let me tell you, we had some fun.
Oh, yeah.
In 3 and 4 feet of snow, and one of us would disappear, and we'd be running our mouths so much we'd go, what happened to Alice? Well, we lost her in a snowdrift in New Hampshire back about, 5 miles ago. And then we go back and she's purple or blue. Seriously, that's a true story. And then I don't drink. But, my friends and I, you come in from the cold, right? After working all day or protesting. And you warm up with hot toddies. I never knew what a hot toddy was till my friends were on the floor. And I had to drag them up to the rooms at 3 and 4 in the morning.
Are awesome.
Yes, I saw that they were
awesome.
But I was the one up in the morning, brisk and happy and spry. And they were almost going in the snow naked to wake themselves up. But anyway, these are great fun, rich. And I've had a rescue operation my entire life, really, almost 35 years.
Yeah.
And everything from feeding little birds every hour and a half all night long for weeks at a time, or, changing casts, giving shots, 35 dogs at a time, 20 cats, there's 65 horses. That my commitment is as you always – no, don't turn your back on anything.
Of course, yeah.
Turn your face to it, but make sure that you put your shoulders back and open your heart. Because a miracle's waiting for you that you just never dreamed, and the people you will meet, and the way that life can change you, and it comes through the news. How else would, up in Habersham County, unless it wouldn't have been the euthanization rate was 92% of animals being killed.
That's crazy.
At the shelter. How would I, if I wouldn't, have been partaked of news? Yeah. And then when I saw it, I was so overwhelmed. I went, we need to move. And then I went, no, maybe I don't know how to deal with this. And I literally cried for a day. And somebody came out and said, do you want to be involved to do something about this? And I said, I can't. It's just too overwhelming. I can't deal with that kind of death and ignorance. And she said, okay, well, then don't. Let's just go to lunch. And she took me to lunch. And we happened to drive by the shelter. She was the one that drove, so I couldn't avoid it. We went to the back. And there were like 20 or 30 bodies of dead dogs, all who had been euthanized like a week before. And it was 90 degrees, and they were all burst open. Well, Bailey, my life changed forever. And
no more running at that point.
No more running.
Yeah.
I went, with all, women's rights, civil rights, with, racism and everything else I'd marched for my entire life. My God, these animals have no voice, and I must be their voice. So my point about that little byline was, it's not about me at all. It's if we avoid the world. And by the way, we fast forward within 3-4 years, we went down to a euthanization rate of 9%. And
in Habersham?
Mm-hmm, we sure did, and started a humane society up there, and changed the life and quality of life of not only these animals. It created a new community up there, because in mountain areas and in rural areas, lots of times, unless you go to a church, right, you don't have a community.
Exactly.
Where else do you gather anymore?
Right.
And if you don't have kids in school, so everybody loves animals, whether you're blue, Republican, Democrat, independent, whether you're an agnostic, atheist, religious, right-wing, I don't care what you are, we gathered around to save lives. That all came from the news. Okay, that came from an investigative reporter. So miracles await you. And again, it's your attitude. So, and in closing, besides not being victimized by the news, what enlightenment, Bailey, would you like to?
Well, I found it interesting that your last byline was like a conversion of sorts, where it's like you ran from that story in Habersham, and then and that didn't work, and your friend brought you to the shelter. I think that's great. That's why I wanted to do this podcast with you, because every time I hang out with you, it's like an explosion in my brain of knowledge, And so as someone who doesn't actively seek out the news, that's something that I'm going to do. I didn't even consider taping it. Like we were talking in, pre-production for this. I had no idea that people would do that. And then you can just skip over something that triggers you. I think that's amazing. That's my biggest takeaway out of today. And I also like the story about how your husband is just the watchful, what was it, the hawk? What was the metaphor that you used?
Yeah, and again, people watch the news differently.
Yeah.
I have to be careful because I'm, as you well know,
you're very active in it.
Very
You're very
proactive
vocal
and very
with it.
reactive and very vocal.
Right,
and I'm going to protect and try to change anything I can, be a voice for it. So when I watch the news, it's already I'm on, baby. It's like game on.
Exactly.
It's like the NFL when the referees, we're also sports freaks, when they blow the whistle, game on, baby.
Right.
Whereas Jim, when we turn on, my husband, when we turn on the news, he is like this mellow. He's a physician, so it's kind of like he's starting a surgery. la la. So we have opposite reactions, and he just watches it like this hawk that soars very high,
but actively watching it,
but absolutely non-emotionally engaged. See, this is a perfect example too of consuming the news.
And I feel like taking it out of we're live at 6:00, taking it out of that can if you feel like you're overreacting to it or things bother you so much, if you take it out of that live element, this is happening now, everyone's watching this right now, that you can do that, because I think that would be the way that I would aspire almost to watch the news the way he does.
Wait, Bailey, that's a great point, because it does make it more passive. And I'll tell you what else it does in the construct of my brain. Instead of being a victim of an evening news or whatever news throwing up on me, and then me deciding what to clean up, I feel like I'm more in control.
Right.
And we know this with stress. The more in control you feel, the lower your stress levels.
Definitely.
The more out of control you feel, the higher your stress levels. So it does. Taping things make you feel like you have and you do have a modicum of control.
Yeah, of course.
And also, here's the other thing. I've had a very amazing life, literally. And so is my spouse, who is brilliant and very active in politics and all kinds of other things. Meaning sports, he's a squawk box finance. He just is a purveyor of all kinds of information. Brilliant person to live with, and lots of fun, by the way. And I'm madly in love with his personality and his brain. So in saying that, when we go places or do things, and even in our marriage and with my friends, I know I know stuff. I didn't. We're going to get a blurb on that one. Yeah. But I do. I know things. Yeah. And I can't help it when you're at a party or gathering or something and somebody says something, you go, oh, so-and-so did something happen. And they go, what? And I'll go, yeah, you need to know about this. It's really so do you see, you become a fountain for other people that have turned off the news or whatever.
What you've kind of become for me in my life. Like that, whenever I talk to people, I'm like, you come up because you bring things to the light that I typically don't seek out, or things that, like I've said before, I've put my blinders on, and that's one thing I think coming out of this, that will be the challenge for me, will be to, let the blinders down, let some of this in and see if you can enact some change in your life, if you can enact some change and do some good out there too. Because I feel like if you take something negative like that, like for example, your Habersham example, something really good came out of that.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be this barrage of bad news and trauma.
No, and
disaster.
also playfulness. I mean, how do you think I felt when I got emails and calls from a family who had 2 children that had been in wheelchairs their whole life? One was 5, one was 9, and they got their first dog from us up in New England.
Oh, that's awesome.
And had waited their whole life to have an animal. And a woman who was metastatic, stage 4 cancer. She got one of our dogs in Minnesota, and started communicating with gratitude to us. And then, literally this went into remission and changed her life. And
oh my gosh.
And her having something else to focus on. So the ripple effects of your life, of being playful and engaged and optimistic, and we're all in this together. So if you're with somebody who is Debbie Downer, which is my daughter, my daughter happens to be an ICU doctor and physician, and
I don't really hold that against her.
Well, they gave her a Debbie Downer doll.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And she said, well, when you're an ICU doctor, you don't. You don't get much,
the worst, man. Gee,
you don't get, hey, Mom, she's going to live 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't get much, hey, let's go in there. It's the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm laughing about the Debbie Downer stuff. But we all know Debbie Downers. And we can help them. We can inspire them. And so what I hope, Bailey, I'm speaking for you now, I hope what you and I can do in these podcasts is to, just whether it's a nudge, a hug, a whisper in your ear, we love you, and we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And we want to create a community around this podcast so that we can all grow and change and navigate this world together to make it better. And that's why our gender difference, our you and mine, and the age difference, that we also want to, instead of everything being marketed and known for, we're going for Generation X or the baby boomers or we're going for Generation Z or all the different marketing. That even separates us.
It really does.
It really does.
Yeah.
And so we want to make this like when my grandmother used to, have all of the kids, all of us sat around her feet as she peeled apples and told, this would be in Kansas, and she would tell stories about the Irish people came in from New York and Canada, so they wanted to get rid of them. So they just sent them out to Kansas so the Native Americans would kill them. And it works pretty effective, by the way. So she would, but when you're a little kid and your granny sits there peeling apples and you're at her feet and she's in a chair and she's telling you stories. And again, man. Native American, I'm sensitive, but they were called Indian stories back then. And she'd talk about, the mailman would come up to the mailbox and I'd sit there and be so excited. I was a little girl, couldn't wait to go down and get the mail. And I looked up, and just as the sound went, there was an arrow through his head. So she'd tell us, and as a kid, we'd be captivated. Well, see, there was no Generation X or Z or baby boomers. It was one story that kept us captivated intergenerationally.
Right.
And through racial divide or problems or economics, these were really deep life stories that changed and both of my grannies did that kind of thing. My other grandmother was always making apple pies. You notice it always had to do with food and pies.
The forbidden fruit.
And pies.
Interesting.
I still love apple pie and cherry pie.
They're great.
But the point is that they were storytellers. And we're missing that also. And I know you know this with millennial. One of the problems we have is they don't read. They want things in short bites and short stories.
Yeah.
So hopefully these podcasts that we're going to do, not too long, just kind of dip in, dip out, but definitely not just a jump in and jump out. We need to swim around a little in the water. Of
course.
And everything else. And we want a response from you too.
Also, and for future podcast episodes, I think that'd be great. Where is it that they reach out to if they want to send us some ideas?
They want to send us some ideas. We can always go to info@mindfullivingnetwork.com.
Yeah, we've touched on some potential future ones, but I would love to hear from some folks that are listening here because now they get a feel for each of our personalities. They could set us up for some great ideas.
And what we'll do is probably just either expand on Facebook. Our Mindful Living Network site so that you can see all this and do this.
And obviously, if we use your idea for a podcast episode, you will get a shout out on air.
Oh,
100%. Yeah.
Oh, are you kidding? 1,000,000%.
Of course.
And at some point, you know me, I like to have a third person. So
we might have to third wheel it.
I would love to invite.
That would be so cool.
Be like when I had my radio shows and I interviewed people, and it's a lot of fun because just getting the idea is okay. But it's fun having that interesting person that has a different bent on life.
Oh, yeah, totally. Totally.
So, okay. I am Kathleen Hall, Dr. Kathleen Hall. This is The Way I See It.
And I am Bailey, like the Irish cream. And this was the way that I see it.
And see you next time.
Thanks,
Thank you for listening.